So good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. And welcome to the panel 100% Electrification. What comes next for Bangladesh? Bangladesh is indeed a fascinating country. It spawned a model for microfinance, which has been adapted worldwide to serve millions of people with financial services, including the rural poor. And where there were no MFIs a few decades ago, now there are thousands serving millions. In Bangladesh alone, there are over 600 indigenous microfinance institutions, among them the largest and most successful in the world, BRAC, ASA International, and the Green Bank. But Bangladesh's outstanding achievements don't stop here. In 2002, when over 70% of the country's rural population had for generations never known electric light, the most dynamic off-grid electrification program in the world was launched. Its purpose? To provide rural households with solar home systems. And within a decade, Bangladesh was on its way to becoming the world's fastest growing off-grid solar market. Local suppliers and manufacturers, trained local technicians, and nearly 50 solar service companies served 15 million villagers in every district of the country. But this market did not emerge by chance. Here, new ideas were at work, with both the leadership and the resources to put them into practice. The World Bank as investor, IDCOL, Bangladesh's financial intermediary, as market manager, and rural entrepreneurs as service providers. Together, under IDCOL's leadership, they developed a solar market, step by step. And yet again, there is a further remarkable achievement in the Bangladesh energy market. In a world in which millions of people are still waiting for electricity services, over 90% of the people in Bangladesh now have access to the electric grid. And still, questions arise. What happens if problems or breakdowns should occur? And what role could solar technology play in support of the grid? Will the solar market move away from solar home systems towards grid-connected distributed renewable energy systems? What's next for Bangladesh? These are the topics we want to explore with these very prominent guests. Fouzul has experienced a three-dimensional view in his career. First, as a secretary to the government, he has closely seen the public realm. Second, as the founding CEO of the infrastructure development company IDCOL, he has witnessed and practiced public entrepreneurship in a government-owned institution run as a private enterprise. And third, observed from the cerebral world as an academic at institutions in the United States, Singapore, and Bangladesh. He is the co-author of the book Financing Large Projects, which has also been published in Chinese translation, and now his new book on IDCOL, entitled Win, How Public Entrepreneurship Can Transform the Developing World, is available on Amazon, both Kindle and paperback. Hardcover edition will be available in March. Welcome, Fouzul.
Thank you, Nancy.
Monia Islam is Deputy CEO and Chief Financial Officer of IDCOL. He joined IDCOL in 1998 and has worked as a key resource person of the company since its inception. Monir has a wealth of experience in financial management and is an expert in negotiating and managing funds from the government and various development partners. He has been managing, apart from IDCOL's own resources, about $1 billion of development funds in both credit and grant from development partners such as the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and other development banks in Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, Sweden, and USA. Monir has been trained both at home and abroad and his expertise ranges from financial management to project financing, microfinance, ICT, and to capacity building initiatives under IDCOL's development programs. Welcome, Monia. Munawar Misbah Moin.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes. Munawar Misbah Moin is the managing director of Rahimafrooz Renewable Energy Limited. He has over 28 years of experience in developing clean tech and energy storage solutions for millions of BOP customers in rural Bangladesh. He is further active in platforms that both discuss and promote clean tech, innovation, and entrepreneurship through the use of technology and financial inclusion. Munawar is a graduate of St. John University of Minnesota in the USA, and he is president of Accumulator and Battery Manufacturers Association, of the Solar Module Manufacturers Association, and president of the IDCOL PO Forum. Welcome, Munawar.
Thanks, Nancy.
Sanjoy is the founder of Regain Paradise, which enables investments in environmental businesses. He has also worked the implementation of environmental credit lines from the European Development Financial Institutions. Sanjoy has been a senior associate at the World Resources Institute and led the New Ventures program in India, aimed at helping early-stage green entrepreneurs raise capital. He has extensive experience in Bangladesh, worked on rural electrification issues in Africa, and has studied the lessons that Bangladesh can bring to Africa. Important for this panel. Welcome, Sanjoy. And finally, I am Nancy Wimmer, and I worked with microfinance institutions and solar entrepreneurs in the villages of Bangladesh for over 2 decades. My recent book, The Market Makers, Solar for the Hinterland of Bangladesh, narrates the story of the off-grid market for solar home systems as told by the people who made it happen, the people at the World Bank, at IDCOL, and the solar entrepreneurs in rural Bangladesh. And with this, I'm telling you, I am very happy to see some of them again today. And dear listeners, we are all happy that you will be hearing from such eminent panelists. We will, however, not be able to consider your questions until after our session because of the time limits, but then we will do so gladly. So let's begin with a question I would first like to direct to all panelists with a request for a 1-minute answer, please, before we go into depth. It's a fact. Rural electrification is needed. But can a rural market develop all by itself? Or should we just leave it to the Chinese? Would the rural market in Bangladesh have emerged without IDCOL? That's my question to all of the panelists. Short answer, please. We'll begin with Fouzul. Fouzul? Are you there?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, of course, there's no question that this rural electrification is needed and which is underway, as you mentioned, in a big way through government's grid expansion program. But the government has also identified some off-grid areas. So that's, and the market that you're talking about actually has come out as a default. So now there is a what you call an open market for products, SHS products, for example. So yes, it is needed, and it's already there. And players like Munawar here and are all active in that market space.
Good. Thank you. But back in 2002, that was a different story. Monir, what do you say, please? 1 minute.
Yes, I mean, if you had asked this question 15 years ago, probably the answer would be no. But yes, with this experience and the successful implementation of solar home system program, now I won't say it is impossible. It's possible, but however, it has to be. I mean, there has to be the right ecosystem in place, and since the market is unusual and the product is unconventional, so there has to be some sort of enabling environment and supervision as well. But it is the market that should take it from.
Yeah, but you mentioned the ecosystem. That's important. Thank you very much. And Munawar, what do you say?
Of course, just like all the other speakers, with 70% population living in rural areas and more than 65% GDP getting generated from there, rural electrification is absolutely needed, and it has to be facilitated with whatever the ecosystem and as much renewable as possible. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. And Sanjoy, with African experience?
Now, can it be achieved only by a market? No, it cannot. And in any case, in countries and areas, even within countries where there is an electricity energy access issue, there is really no market, right? There are cases of market failures. So market cannot develop by itself. That having said, markets create discipline. They lead to the provision of services where there is need. They lead to suppliers generating and getting value out of their services. So creating the market is essential. But market alone cannot ever create meet the needs for energy access.
Okay, thank you. Well, with this as a background, as a start, I would like to first turn to Fouzul and ask you, Fouzul, please explain IDCOL's journey in developing a rural market for solar home systems. And why did you opt for a market back in 2002? I mean, why not just subsidize the solar systems and leave the rest up to the to the POs and the local banks? Begin, please. You have,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. You see, Nancy has already mentioned about my upcoming book. So what I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit about that, and also instead of getting into serious discussion, I'll tell the story. Actually, it called into this SHS program by accident. You see, it was back in 2002. We had a blind date with the World Bank with this large and medium infrastructure projects, and that didn't go very well. So we were given $220 million, and then out of that, we could invest only $80 million because of various restrictions. So then what happened is that instead of being known as a financing institution, people used to say that IDCOL is a great project finance training institution. It is telling something like telling Michael Jackson is a good dancer rather than ignoring their singing skills, you know. So that's what has happened. And then at that time, what we did was we played something what I call, I didn't include in the book, but you are adults, so I could tell you that. We adopted a hooker strategy. By hooker strategy means that, you know, we would put up the makeup and all that, and then stand in the road and then hoping that somebody will pick us up. By that, what I mean is that we created a good institution, and then, we said that, yes, if you're attractive enough as an institution, somebody, of course, come about and then So actually, that has happened in 2003 when World Bank approached us again for the solar home system. So that Vijay Iyer was there at that time. So we went to and saw a system. And I'll be honest with you, I was nonplussed. I didn't like what I saw, this, this car battery-like thing, and a teen something, and then some wear and all that. Not very impressive in my urban eyes. But nevertheless, World Bank kept pressing. So what I did was I installed a two system in my village home. And I have totally forgot about that. I paid for this from my own pocket. And then I received a letter from the local mosque. And then they said that it was a wonderful, and then they are praying for my family and so on. I also received another note from my nieces that they are enjoying this. So I thought this must be good, So then, only then, I came on board. Okay, then coming to this is, so IDCOL was lucky, to have tailwinds, because you see what happened during this period. So we started this HSS program, achieved it 2.5 years before the target date of 5.5 years. And it was unprecedented in the history of the World Bank. And World Bank Vice President wrote to us that this has never happened in their World Bank project history. There was a reason for this. Then it was favored by the aviation, parlance, this what we call tailwinds. So these tailwinds were aware that the fossil fuel prices were going up, kerosene, the competing price was going up, and then solar panel prices were coming down, and then this LED light came in, and then also we could organize it. So this tailwinds really pushed it to the heights that Nancy had mentioned. But then it also towards 2013 or 14, it faced headwinds again. So what happened at that time is that this grid electrification was done like on extensive basis. That's one. And then the government started giving away free solar home systems under its social safety network program. So that affected. And then also the other thing that happened is that piggybacking on the IDCOL program standards, products, and the market. So this private market emerged for selling, and they were selling at a lower price, and then also probably provided more flexibility in terms of choice of system. So as a result of this, so IDCOL was planning to 6 million solar home system. That didn't materialize, and that has come to a stop. And then another unfortunate part of it was that a lot of IDCOL funds became stranded as a result of this. Not only IDCOL fund, but is basically this was a a blending of project finance and microfinance. So IDCOL was lending to the POs on project finance basis, and then the POs were lending on microfinance basis. So POs money got stuck, and then POs were unable to pay IDCOL. So IDCOL's So now IDCOL is trying to emerge out of this, and there is, in addition to the headwind that I mentioned, I should say that there was some kind of complacency crept into IDCOL. So the success was so great, everybody was in celebrating mood, and then not in not thinking much about it. And also the hallmark was IDCOL was always has been was proactive rather than reactive to events. So you see, although this World Bank, and then we are, because as I said, it's in the book, I tell this very clearly that this is a collective effort. That's what I mean by public entrepreneurship, not individual, but the POs, the World Bank, the IDCOL, and everybody else together. So was successful. And if this agents went individually one by one, only a fraction of what has been achieved as it could have been achieved. So there is this program has created a huge asset of this manpower and all, because you see, we don't give a doctor in village areas. You hardly get any government officials willing to stay in here. But you have the cadre of what you call technicians and managers who were living abroad. So that is a big asset that has been stranded here now. So the challenge here in the future is to what you call utilize asset, and for that the point that I was earlier mentioning, that IDCOL needs to become more proactive. World Bank was there, POs were there. Everybody made their, academicians made their contribution. And the program success is due to everybody's contribution, but it was always IDCOL that was in the lead. So IDCOL needs to, place itself in the forefront again. So Nancy, I will stop, and then I'll be happy to take any question at the end.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Fouzul. What I'm hearing, and I will summarize as we go through this so that listeners actually is a learning process. And what Fouzul is telling us, first of all, seeing is believing. He didn't believe himself that the solar home system was really of any benefit until he heard from his own family how wonderful it was. And now we can do so many things. And I think you gave a solar home system also to a mosque. And now they're praying for Fouzul because of the light that they have and the microphone. So the seeing is believing. This is, I think, something we should remember with every new product that has been introduced, even with Fouzul. Another thing I learned from your presentation was that success often comes from combining existing methods in new ways and then testing them. So the strength of IDCOL's innovative financial model was the blending of microfinance and project finance. And this was designed in a way that it had to be continually tested, trial and error, and continuous iteration. And this is something to remember when, I think, building any kind of a market. I do have one question to you, Fouzul, before I let you go. And that is, of course, the microfinance, you looked at what was there. And Bangladesh is very unique in having so many successful microfinance organizations, but you chose not to subsidize them heavily or subsidize the product, but to incentivize the private enterprise. Why was that your choice? Short answer, please, and then we go on.
Actually, you see, for the beginning, IDCOL's goal was to commercialize this solar home system. So our dream was that you could, you could buy a radio from a rural market. So you should be able to do that. So that was the goal with which at IDCOL we were working. So that's why we see that but initially you to break the barriers in the market. So you needed this subsidy, two types of subsidy, this capital buy down grant to lower the installment payment, and also subsidy to the POs for their institution building. But you see, these were all gradually reduced and eliminated. And then also the concessional loans were also made less concessional over the period. And this was done precisely for that purpose, so that the POs and the market could stand on their own, and then without the grant support, they could move on. So that was the gain. But what happened is that it happened too abruptly. So I wish there were a more managed transition in the process. And the other thing I should probably mention you that in addition to the POs, we also tried pure private firms. Actually, one of the first listed companies were Singer, Bangladesh. As you know, that a sewing machine, a company that has access in all areas, on all the district towns and so on. But unfortunately, they didn't find it worthwhile. So, but if we had a pure private company, not a microfinance institution, that was successful, then probably this what you call market-based HSS could have probably happened much earlier.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, rural business is tough. Definitely tough. Now, I would like to go to Monir and hear about where is IDCOL at present. Fast forward now to the present. And how does IDCOL build on its past success? First, though, I must say, Monir, I'm reminded of the fact that the thing about past success is that it commits you to success in the future, but doesn't tell you how this should come about. So where is IDCOL at present and what's in store in future? Please, Monir.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Yes, I mean, if you want to, really understand this level of success created through this intervention, you need to understand the context first. As my mentor, Dr. Khan, has already explained the situation and the gradual development under this intervention. So I would also like to mention about the context at that point of time. See, the context was like the access to electricity was less than 40%. So it was much needed that we reach out to the rural people for granting them access to electricity. So that was a necessity. And on the other hand, I mean, the awareness regarding this renewable energy, especially the solar energy, was at that level. Let me tell you my favorite story. I mean, at that point of time, we actually had to, take all these panel batteries to the rural marketplaces and show the people that sunlight can really produce electricity. So from that level of awareness, now Bangladesh is known as a solar nation.
Mm.
So you can see the difference, with this successful intervention. I mean, we have graduated from that level of awareness to a solar nation. So to understand the success of this solar home system program, you also have to take into this context into account.
Very good.
So that is one. And then, we have developed a total ecosystem for this market. For example, when we started, I mean, we hardly knew any manufacturer or supplier of these equipments and peripherals. So we had to, bring in from international markets. But quickly enough, we were able to develop the local capacity. And most of the peripherals and equipments, started being manufactured here in the country. So that is another success. And then, the partner organizations who actually did the difficult task of disseminating this solar home system across the country. So all these created this success. And then, we have some learning as well. As Dr. Khan mentioned, I mean, there were some, interventions beyond our control. So that was not, known beforehand. Mm-hmm. So there is a clear, lack of coordination among the market players. So that was a learning for us. So, for example, the grid connectivity, was, being the new connections were being made about 300,000 a month, starting from 2014. But even a year ahead, we hardly knew about this plan. So there was a clear, lack of coordination. So that is a big lesson for all of us. So that will probably help us to, successful implementation of future interventions that we are planning for. So now come to the current situation. I mean, well, based on that experience, I mean, it gave us courage to take up other renewable energy interventions. For example, we started the solar mini grid projects. We were able to install 26 solar mini grid projects. And then we also started this solar run irrigation pump projects. And we have so far done like 1,514 solar irrigation pumps. We also started biogas and biofertilizer program. And we have done so far like 57,000 domestic biogas plants across the country. We also have financed some biomass and biogas-based electricity projects. We are also continuing with this biogas-based electricity projects. Now we are more focusing on these solar rooftop projects. So setting up solar panels on the back end and unused rooftop of the industrial establishments to generate electricity from there. And thanks to the net metering policy announced by the government, that has made this project more viable. So we are focusing on that. We had a top line survey for the garments and textile industry only, and we found the very top line survey says that there is a potential of about more than 500 megawatts only on these garments and textile manufacturing industries. So we have started implementing this project, and we have a target, of course, a conservative target to start with. We have a target of setting up 300 megawatt generation capacity on the industrial rooftops by 2023. So that's coming great, but we are actually we were able to create a very good momentum in the market, and then because of this COVID-19 pandemic, I mean the momentum has paused in some way, but since the core business of those rooftop owners are affected by this pandemic, so it was sort of paused. But now the businesses are getting back to their track. So the interest from these roof owners are also gaining the same level of momentum, and our active pipeline at least tells about that promising scenario in very near future.
Excellent.
So apart from that, I mean, as you all know, I mean, we have different, the policy and strategy documents developed by different government agencies, namely, the power sector master plan. Then we have this Bangladesh Delta plan, and then we have perspective plan, and we have 5-year plan. And now under the banner of V20 group, another set of document is being formulated called Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan. That plan will be formulated for next 2 decades. So these are the the strategic documents that set the target and pathways for implementation of different renewable energy projects in the coming years. So I mean these are great targets, and IDCOL is planning to be part of that big target set by the government and different agencies. And we, as I mentioned, I mean, we are doing these things right now, and then we are planning to go big. I forgot to mention about the grid connected solar. As you know, government has awarded a good number of grid connected solar projects to the private sector. From IDCOL, we have financed one project so far, having a capacity of 10 megawatt electricity from the solar park. These are coming, more in the more projects in our pipeline, and we hope we can finance more of them. So I will stop here and.
Very good, very good.
Thank you very much.
Just one question: what is moving the fastest, and what is taking the most or the most difficult to move on? Can you name projects that? Yeah.
Yes. If you are talking about our existing portfolio, the solar rooftop project is coming really great. And if I have to mention about the challenge, of course, solar irrigation, solar mini grid and solar irrigation. These are the two projects facing some challenges for two different reasons. One, for the mini grid, because of this grid expansion, there is a limited potential for solar mini grid to take this project to further level. Then for the solar irrigation pump projects, it requires a level of subsidy to compete with the diesel run pumps. So for the initial phase, we have implemented this more than 1,500 pumps already. So now we are talking with the development partners to come and support this program to take it to the next level.
Very good. That was an important remark. Now I come to Munawar. And Munawar, you actually represent the private sector in this panel. And I know that there is a lot going on in the private sector. I have learned from you that there are 22 solar battery makers, 83 solar LED light manufacturers, 9 panel manufacturers, and more. And what we would like to hear from you is what is the role you see of private enterprise to expand the solar sector, and will protective use make renewable energy technologies commercially viable? Take the floor, please, Munawar.
Thanks again, Nancy. Well, I think if I go back a little bit, as early as the mid-1990s onwards, I think one of the role of the private sector has been demonstrating the technology. So if you look at solar home system, even that demonstration was done by private players like us, just to convince people that actually solar works. It started with solar home system, it moved on to irrigation pumps, even rooftops. I remember, where the initial rooftop people wouldn't believe that actually something can come out and get into the grid system or into the system of the building. So I think demonstration has been a very key role played by the private sector in terms of technology works. And so if you look at from the home system, what has happened is, as previously mentioned, that it has become an open, it has become an open market today. So there are 6 million homes, they need replacement products. There are few new homes getting connected every month because, last mile electricity delivery by grid will always be till the near future, will be inconsistent and inadequate. However much you try to do that, because demand assessment will remain poor. So solar home system is becoming like a backup power system. So that's why you see still in the market, every month, 5,000-10,000 systems still get sold because of that reason. So that is a continuation from the solar home system part. The next level of growth, whether you see it from rooftops or irrigation pumps, or it could be, productive applications like milk chiller, cold storage, rice dryer, whatever you may call it. Renewable energy technology will really ramp up based on how directly we can link it to a productive use. And that is the challenge. That is the challenge that we all have, is to come up with a solution that has irrigation pump is one good example that it has direct link to productive use. Your rooftop electricity and they see that very clear benefit in terms of cost and sustainability and green energy. So demonstrating and creating an economic option.
Is there a problem with the
in the
sound?
convention, the whole issue is that whenever you try to do anything with renewable energy, hello, yeah. So whenever you try to do something with renewable energy, it comes to intensive grilling. How efficient is it? How cost effective it is? Whereas when you look at the conventional energy, it is getting all the subsidies in the world. There is significant inefficiencies. You tend to overlook all that. But when it comes to renewable energy, you start getting all these questions of the world, which is good in one way. I think it makes the proposition even much more better. But I think renewable also needs its appropriate ecosystem that will ensure that the new technologies gets demonstrated, gets piloted, and then commercially eventually adopted in all senses, where all concerned players, that includes consumers, financiers, regulators, they all feel sort of aligned to it and see that it actually works. So Bangladesh, where 70% of the population lives rural, and a lot of the productive, as I said, 65% GDP comes from rural areas. So any renewable energy solution that helps to improve agro output, livestock output, fisheries output, SME output, will actually help in developing the RE escalation in the country, and specifically into areas and in commercial areas are increasingly, specifically with the government's policy, is becoming feasible. What other financial institutions have to learn from IDCOL is that, because you are talking of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of financing that we require. So IDCOL today is the only specialized organization. So there has to be many more for renewables to get escalated. So that is something that other financial sector people have to learn from IDCOL, so that IDCOL grows and the whole financing sector also actually grows in that direction to make RE technologies more relevant with productive use.
Munawar, that was excellent. Excellent. Thank you for these insights. In particular, what you said at the end about IDCOL. It is strange that these ideas are not emulated in it, but perhaps I don't know if you have a reason that why IDCOL is perhaps specialized, as you say, and valuable for the market, why this is not true, why this doesn't happen. Is it too difficult?
Sorry,
you just commented about the importance of IDCOL.
Nancy.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Oh, no. That's like everything, because IDCOL is the only loan specialized financing institution for renewables. So, which is good, But the thing is, as you scale up, you need many more financial institutions because IDCOL alone cannot be funding everything. It cannot fund, let's say we need 300,000 irrigation pumps to be rolled out, right? IDCOL alone cannot fund that. We need 2-3 gigawatts of solar rooftops that needs to be funded. IDCOL alone cannot be doing that. Maybe they'll do 50%, but then the rest 50% other financial institution also has to come up, where Bangladesh Bank has to play a much more proactive role, take the learnings from IDCOL and see how that specialized activity can be, adopted with all the other commercial banks, which has networks all over the country. Bangladesh Bank has green funds, all that policy, but it has not been as yet effective like IDCOL in really making it happen to the last mile.
Very good. Very good. The way is clear as what needs to be done. I would like now to go to Sanjoy, because now the stage is set, Sanjoy, for you. And I know because of your extensive work in Bangladesh, you also did a very extensive report on IDCOL. You are very knowledgeable, but you also know Kenya and Tanzania. And tell us, please, what lessons can Bangladesh bring to Africa? Sanjoy, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And I'm, just before I answer the question, I must say that I'm very honored and privileged to be here with you, with Dr. Khan, Munawar Bhai, Monirul Bhai, and thank you very much, Sebastian, for inviting me here. It is a very special moment for me. I think IDCOL has three things to teach. IDCOL and Bangladesh has three things to teach Africa. First of all, at the policy level. IDCOL's policy of ensuring that public finance reaches what Fouzul Khan talks about microfinance, rural households, is one thing that IDCOL has to teach Africa. The second, but that's at the policy level. The second is at the business level. And it is, I think, very important for Bangladesh business people, the partner organizations, the 22 battery manufacturers, the upstream LED manufacturers that you talked about, Nancy, to think about whether they should be expanding their business to Africa. Third, and most importantly, I think Africa should learn that international development aid and international policy advice goes only so far to make a country prosperous. It is the ability of people like Dr. Khan to be able to, sort of sit across the table with the World Bank professional like Dr. Vijay Modi and say, you know what, I don't believe in your solar home systems. Let me go and check it out with my own family before I believe you, the World Bank, the senior World Bank leader. I think that story to me is very important. The fact that you have to stand up for your country and your people and be able to say that this works in this way in my country, and I will try and experiment and pilot it in my own way. Mm-hmm. Let me break up each of those three things in a little bit more detail. First, the policy issue on the finance side. The United Nations SA for All, has a big website. They have, they bring in hundreds of people to Amsterdam or Vienna every year. But it surprises me and stuns me and saddens me that in none of these conferences they ever talk about Bangladesh. Bangladesh, after all, is the only country in the world which got to electrify a reasonable percentage, a fairly large percentage, 5 million solar home systems, 25 million people using solar home systems. Where in the world has that happened? And in this United States SA for All conference, all you're trying to do is to reinvent the wheel. What did IDCOL do from a finance perspective? First of all, it made local currency debt available at a reasonable price to partner organizations who could, again, make it reasonable for households to borrow. 6%, so 6% money, 3 over 6 years, to be on lent at 12% over 3 years to the rural households. That's project finance meeting microfinance. 12% interest rate a household can afford. The second is that it ensured the quality products. People don't buy solar home systems. Financiers are hesitant to buy solar home systems because they often fail in the field. The entire quality infrastructure of IDCOL, from standards to certification, to testing, to getting the products back from the field, that ensured quality. The third is that these partner organizations were chosen. For a long time, of course, Grameen was the number one partner organization and probably remained number one for a long time till the project ended. But these organizations had the rural reach, they had the ability to go to people's houses, to provide customer service and collect the money. And the fourth is, they had the incentives to do so. That is what Dr. Khan called the results-based financing program. So this, I cannot, and I spent 7 years working in this field, ever think of any African nation being able to adapt a decentralized renewable energy program without these 5 building blocks. It's just, if it happens, I'm willing to learn, but I just cannot understand how it can happen otherwise. You can tell me that, look, Sanjoy, pay-as-you-go companies in Africa are doing the same thing, and that is true. They are doing the same thing. The solar companies are lending to households. But because they don't have domestic local currency debt financing, they have to put up these very complicated structures overseas to raise money off balance sheet and send it to Africa. This leads to 3 problems. Number one, there will never be those 22 battery manufacturers and 72 LED manufacturers in Africa. Second, it is very risky. What happens if one of these companies fail? Third is it is very expensive. It is foreign currency debt, subject to foreign currency fluctuations. So a foreign currency fluctuation means maybe a poor African farmer pays more for electricity. Is that fair? And you started the question by asking, is that, can a market solve this need? I believe a market, and I answered that a market is important, but subjecting a poor farmer to the vagaries of the market, that's, to me, just not ethical. So that's the first part, and that's the most important part. But I'll end by saying 2 more things. That is, I do believe that businesses in Bangladesh need to move out and think about Africa. If you are component, Monirul Islam said today that all the component manufacturers really emerged in Bangladesh. Where are these component manufacturers in Africa? When Rwanda is setting up its Made in Rwanda policy and inviting foreign direct investment, companies from Netherlands are investing there. The fact is that the success of the Bangladesh market was so big that the market of off-grid electricity, which existed in Africa, was disrupted by 28-year-old boys from Germany and America, and they're all great guys. But Bangladesh business people have to ask themselves, why couldn't we see that opportunity? So with that, that's to me the lesson. And I think, the lesson is that it is important for Bangladesh to be able to say this to the world, that look, we did this thing, and today we are a middle-income country, and the time has come for us to be confident and go to the world and tell our story. Thank you.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you, Sanjoy. I couldn't agree with you more. When I give talks on Bangladesh, I'm often introduced as from India. No, it's amazing. That's one of the reasons I wrote 2 books. But I must say 2 things. So first of all, Bangladeshis can be proud. Very proud, because the solar market development in rural Bangladesh proved that the impetus for market development can come from within Bangladesh itself, driven by local entrepreneurs and policy and the many things we've talked about. So this is something I think really that should be emphasized. And the other thing is that you actually touched upon is that this market would not have taken off by itself, nor would its complex machinery have functioned smoothly without active leadership. We talked about that also on the phone. And active leadership eludes us because it's not quantifiable. So people avoid it. It doesn't pop up in business plans and so on. But IDCOL's Bangladesh Solar Home System project has so many new ideas that we can emulate. And thank you, Sanjoy, because you have pointed out why some of these ideas are difficult to emulate and why in Africa it is a different story. But tell me, do you think that these pay-as-you-go companies could play the role of the POs, of the partner organizations?
Well, the pay-as-you-go is a technology, right? Right, and it's a technology of a smart chip, you know, to simplify it, of a smart chip in a solar home system, which allows you know, mobile payments and remote monitoring. If you manufacture a solar home system, the pay-as-you-go technology is today a fairly commoditized technology. There are companies, you know, from China to Nairobi will put the chip in that system. Then it's question of going out and making the you know, going out and doing the hard work, selling the system, collecting the money, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Fine. Wonderful. This is I think a very dynamic panel with, how shall I say, all this experience that goes into your proposals and your suggestions. That's what makes it so worthwhile. We've come actually to the end of our session, and what I would like to talk about now, we started with, could this market have been developed all by itself? We have your input, and now the topic is 100% electrification. What comes next for Bangladesh? So what's next, dear panelists? What is next in the solar renewable energy sector in Bangladesh? I would like to hear, first of all, what you think is doable in 3 to 5 years. And for all of you visionaries, you could tack on what you think maybe in 10 or more than 10 years would happen. So please, your input for what's next in the solar renewable sector in Bangladesh. Fouzul, would you begin, please?
Okay, thank you. As I said, you see this in electricity, wearing my hat as a former power secretary. So you see, there are important things. One is this electricity access. So we've done quite well, both in terms of the extension of the grid and also this off-grid solar home systems and other things. So that's it. Then what is next? The next is what is called what quality of electricity that we are getting. You know, what happens? So how many interruptions per day? For how many hours do you get the electricity? And then then what is the quality of the electricity? Is the voltage right there, and so on and so forth. So now we have to address this what you call quality issues there. Then there is this third issue is a sustainability issue. Would we be able to sustain it? So Munawar has rightly said that the country's focus remains on the fossil fuel-based energy. So that is an unfortunate thing, because in the long run, that is not sustainable. But you know, people make tons of money, so that's why the emphasis is there. Because with the IPPs, people have made tons of money. Now through LNG imports, people are their initiatives to what you call to make some more people richer. So we had electricity balance. Now we'll have energy balance and so on. So that's why we need to, as I said, for the sake of sustainability, we have to move in there. And then these sustainability aspects have been outlined by both Sanjay, Munawar, and Monirul. So first of all, there will be gaps, because although you see they have connected 96% household, but there are many gaps. So you really have to plug in those gaps. And then also you have to move into the energy ladder, you know. So from this DC electricity to grid quality electricity provided by this rooftop solar, solar irrigation pump and other things. And as Munawar and Sanjay both emphasized, the need for income generating activities through electricity. And first and last and foremost, I'll just stop my comments here by saying that You see, I am a strong believer in an institution. I've written in my book, it called survived 2 assassination attempts. So you see, way back in 2002, the finance minister wanted to shut it down. One day, there was a newspaper that the IDCOL should be shut down because they were not able to use the fund provided by. Not only that, IDCOL should be investigated for this failure. So that was the first assassination attempt. And we went back to the finance minister and explained to him, and then he gave us 50 crore taka as extra capital. So you see, institutions are very, very important because. And then there was a second assassination attempt by the World Bank. They wanted to close it down. They said they wanted to create this IPFF facility. They said that we'd like to close your shop, and then so now we survived that. And we also had another near-death experience. You see, when we did this 50,000 solar system 2.5 years ahead, we ran out of grant money, without which at that point in time, the market was not sustainable. So I went to a conference in Berlin, and then I was stopped. I was scheduled to give a 15 minutes presentation during the lunch break, and then I was stopped after 5 minutes because this session started. So then, somebody came from BMZ and then said that he would like to take a look at the presentation, and then BMZ through KFW came in. So the basic point is that we have to strengthen these institutions. Without institutions, you will not be. So this energy mix and sustainability and institution and strengthening of institutions will be the 2 key for the future.
Oh, thank you for that. It's so important, the institution building, which makes actually it's sustainable. And as I hear you speak, for sure, and not only today, but in the past, I'm reminded of what someone said, that leaders are visionaries with a poorly developed sense of fear. And this seems to fit. You take on every challenge, and it's amazing how much you have succeeded in doing. So thank you for that. I would like to go now to Monir. Would you like to comment what's next in the renewable sector in Bangladesh? Monir, please.
Yes, thank you, Nancy. I already mentioned about some of the the policy documents and another strategic papers. So they all are articulates about the the future and forthcoming projects under this renewable energy sector. So the target is like 10%. 10% from 10% of the total generation capacity should come from the renewable energy sources. So if you are asking about, say, next 5 years, or for example 2025, it should be around 3,000 megawatt coming from renewable energy projects. So out of this 10%, so far our achievement is like 3.5%. It's a long way to go. But the good thing is we have all these, the right policies in place. We have the targets and pathways set by the government. And besides this, we already know about the, the potential of unexplored sectors of the renewable energy, for example, offshore wind energy, and also the floating solar projects. So these are all, captured in these strategy documents. And as I mentioned, we have the, the encouraging policy documents in place, and we have this assessment done, and we have the experience and expertise gained through this already implemented interventions. So yes, I'm hopeful and optimistic that we can reach the target, and these are the projects, and I mean, there are more success stories to come in the near future.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And as Churchill said, it's probably success is going to be going from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm, because that's the name of the game. There are things that simply don't come out like we want them to. But I would like to go to Munawar now. And Munawar, fascinating in your presentation was, first of all, your emphasis on productive use for viability, but that of course has to be designed into the project. That takes a lot of work. And the other thing that you mentioned that I thought very important was the fact that the fossil fuels and the subsidies. How is there a chance of this changing? So fewer subsidies for fossil fuel, more for renewable energy, or fewer altogether? How do you see that happening in the future? And what's next, in your opinion, for solar in Bangladesh?
Thanks again, Nancy. The thing is, I'll quote somebody who said that success in Bangladesh mainly happens because there are plurality of drivers. Multiple people in different areas doing their job with a lot of commitment and heart. And I think we see that also in solar sector, among all its difficulties, that a few of us are still at it, and it's happening, and that's what's going to happen, at least for the foreseeable future, till one of the points that was highlighted is the institution building. Even in the very recent discussions with policymakers, what we from the private sector have been telling them is, which is that single institution which is empowered to achieve the renewable energy goals. Is it SREDA? Is it Ministry of Power? Which one is it? So we still have not got our answers in full terms. We believe that there has to be a single ministry like the MNRE in India or somewhere else, where they have to be empowered with budget, program, plan, resource, everything to go out and escalate. And with our Honorable Prime Minister committing 100% renewable by 2050, we believe it will happen. It's a matter of time, but it will happen. At the head of the Climate Vulnerable Forum in 2016, she has actually gone and in Morocco committed 100% renewable in Bangladesh. So in terms of immediate, as highlighted by Mr. Monirul from IDCOL, rooftop is actually one of the biggest uptake because of its commercial viability, very simple, and the net metering policy sort of making it much better. And as more and more financing and awareness and real implementation happens in the near term, in the next 2 or 1 year, we will see a significant rise in the rooftop escalation. Everything else, the thing is, at policy level, we need a paradigm shift in thinking how economic and social development takes place, how power needs to be delivered to make that happen. Like, if we think that renewable will happen only by megawatt ground-mounted plants and things like that, then again, we are thinking very much like the past. What has to happen is renewable happening more distributed, more connected to productive use, so that at the end of the day, it is much more energy efficient, it is sustainable, it leads to economic output and upliftment, So with distributed renewable energy, one can go and sort of create that impact, measure that impact, and make it happen. And then have a smart ecosystem that can sort of pump out the 20%, 30% additional electricity that all this distributed renewable energy at any given point will have access to be used all around. So in real implementation, rooftop, we will see some irrigation pump also happening in the process. It all depends because, as I said, the few 100,000 irrigation pump requirement, which IDCOL alone cannot do it. Government must come up with a much more also feasible proposition where IDCOL can also escalate and some other agencies can also escalate. And we all collectively work to the vision of 100% electrification by 2050. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. And I can only say, again, the scene is believing that with more and more success that you are demonstrating, Bangladesh, you have to demonstrate.
Sure.
To change your mindset. You have to demonstrate. And so much is happening also in the world regarding the mindset towards renewable energy. And you speak about changing the paradigm. That's a very slow process, but is the hope perhaps that demonstrating what can be done in Bangladesh will contribute to that. That's my hope. And I think it's reality.
If I can add to that demonstration idea. So one of the things that we have been saying is that energy cannot be seen by itself. It has to be connected. It has to be connected to the internet, the productive use. Like look at the electric vehicle regime in this country. 1 million vehicles running around, transporting anywhere between 8 to 10 million people every day, employing 1.5 million people. And charging, from the grids. And imagine the same thing running on a platform, solar or solar hybrid charging stations, So you have a whole ecosystem which is fully connected. The multiplying effect will be much more significant. So it has to be energy, transportation, productivity, host of other things, all connected together, giving multiple multiplying impacts.
Precisely. Sanjoy, we're almost at the end. Please give your input on this. I definitely want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have very little to add to what everybody else has said in terms of increasing the RE potential, in the policy angles, and so on and so forth. What I would do is to add two additional ways of looking at things. And I think the one important thing is to think of this in the next decade. The primary issue in Bangladesh will be the issue of climate adaptation and resilience. And I think one of the things that you may want to think about, and I really hope colleagues from Bangladesh would think about, is how do I incorporate a renewable energy thinking in climate resilience issues. So these issues around productive load, the issues around electric vehicles for reducing pollution, and so on and so forth. How can this be integrated in the next 10 years? Because we are definitely going to see things like extreme climate events, rainfall, dry spells within the monsoon. We're going to see tidal waves and so on and so forth. So I think looking at it from climate adaptation resilience standpoint is one thing that I definitely hope that will happen. The second thing that I really hope will happen is, again, tying up whatever everybody else has said, is the issue of innovation.
Yes.
I think it is high time that Bangladesh thinks that it should innovate on the infrastructure that it has built. Think about SoulShare as a company. It has been able to innovate on a solar training, peer-to-peer solar training model because of the infrastructure that has been built. 1 million electric vehicles running. What is the innovation that can be built on top of that? What is the innovation that, Munawar, you can build around a smart village where there is electric connectivity, there is the milling center or the rice husking centers run by renewable energy, not just solar, maybe solar combined biogas. And I think that in creating a play field for innovation is what I really hope will happen in the next few years.
Again, innovation is also a term that eludes us. It is only popular during the last decades. In earlier economic theory, they left it out, innovation out, because they couldn't quantify it. But it is extremely important, as you have pointed out. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, dear panelists, we're at the end of I think, an extremely informative session. I have taken a lot with me myself, and I'm certain that the listeners have as well. And somehow I'm thinking of Andrew Grove, one of the founders of Intel, who said, if it's hard to make a success out of something, It's an order of magnitude harder to sustain that success. And we've heard today what will be needed to sustain the success and to go forward, as Munawar said, to reach our goals with renewable energy. There's much to be done, and Bangladesh is contributing largely to this goal. Does anyone have anything as a last comment? I think we are now at the end.
Yes,
Otherwise-
Nancy, if you allow me, I mean, Sanjoy has just reminded me, to mention about the access to GCF, the Green Climate Fund. So
Good.
you probably know that IDCOL has been accredited and has started, mobilizing fund from GCF, not only for climate adaptation, but also for the climate mitigation projects. So this is another opportunity. Munawar also mentioned, making the access to financing a bit diversified. So this
Does that fit in?
accreditation will make this easier to accomplish the targeted goals.
Does this fit into what Munawar said, that the financing would be available for scaling up, is what Munawar was talking about?
Yes, that's what I just mentioned. There will be an opportunity to diversify the sources of financing, not from the government or development credits from the development partners only, but also the GCF will.
Oh, it's working.
Yeah.
My camera is working.
Was it dead or what?
Panelists, we've been working on this for hours, and now at the end of the session, it comes up. So thank you. You see, all good things come to a good end. I thank all of my panelists. I've enjoyed it immensely. I enjoyed our conversations beforehand, and I hope that we will continue to keep intact. And thank you all.